Good evening, Hattiesburg. Thanks for joining us for this COVID-19 and City News briefing for Friday, December the 11th. We will actually start tonight with some very important city news. Around 1 o'clock this afternoon, the city was sent notice that customers in our water system would be placed on a state-imposed boil water notice. This stems from E. coli contamination from one sample out of 50 samples that were taken on December 9th and then tested over the last 24 hours. This is part of the city's monthly water screening. Because only 1 of 50 contained this contamination, it is likely that this issue is isolated to that particular sample site, which is on the 1900 block of Hardy Street. And just so you know, that site is not the grocery store or the coffee shop or anywhere else you would normally pull up for a drink of water. However, because it's E. coli, the city's water system is on a state-imposed boil water notice, even though it's only one sample out of 50 that had this happen. So what happens now? The city must now submit 60 samples, which we are now taking, upstream and downstream from the affected sample site for testing. Another 60 samples will be taken tomorrow. And if both sets of those 60 follow-up samples come back clear, then the boil water notice will be lifted. However, we do anticipate to be under this notice for at least 48 hours. There's more information at hattiesburgms.com. So some may ask, what can I do safely? Under a boil water notice, you can wash your hands and bathe as usual as long as you don't swallow the water. You can cook with tap water if the food will be boiled for at least a minute. However, you need to wash your dishes and fruits and vegetables with boiled or bottled water. You need to brush your teeth with boiled or bottled water. And you are not supposed to drink tap water to make juices and drinks from water that hasn't been boiled. You're not supposed to drink from water fountains. You're not supposed to use ice made from tap water that hasn't been boiled. Obviously, we apologize for this inconvenience. We do believe it to be isolated to one area, but we'll know more when results from this first set of 60 samples come in tomorrow evening. But in an abundance of caution and in accordance with its regulations, the Mississippi State Department of Health has imposed this boil water notice. Again, you can get more information at hattiesburgms.com. So on to COVID briefing. We'll start with hospitalizations. And sadly, we're up to over 100 hospitalizations between our two hospitals of confirmed COVID cases. We're at 105 right now with another 2 under investigation. And of those 105, 33 of those are in the ICU. As you can see, we've hit some new territory. We actually hit 109 a couple of days ago, dropped below 90. We're back up at 105 today. Statewide today, 2,320 new cases, 2,327 new cases were reported, 41 new deaths, and unfortunately one of those new deaths was here in Forest County, which brings the total deaths in our area. Forest County is at 91, Lamar County is at 51, and we send our heartfelt condolences to that family in Forest County. New positive cases today. It was another tough day for us. 50 new cases reported in Forest County and 39 new cases reported in Lamar County, which brings totals now to 4,369 in Forest County and 3,361 in Lamar County. Our 5-day average, we continue to add new lines to this graph, which we don't want to do. We're back up just over 80 in terms of where average new cases per day for the metro area. The inside 14-day number, this is the number of people who've received their positive test result within the last 14 days. This gives you an idea of the potential active cases in our community. And right now that number is 564 in Forest County, and that number in Lamar County is 469. So we, again, over 1,000 cases, which we hit earlier this week. And just compared to last Friday, Forest County was at 507 a week ago, 564 today. Again, these are potential active cases because they've received their positive test result in the last 2 weeks. Lamar County jumped from 414 to 469, so we're now at 1,033 total in the metro area who have received their positive test result in the last 2 weeks and are considered potential active cases. Hospitalizations, also a big jump there. We're up 12 from a week ago, down 1 in ICU admissions. Our goals continue to be, as we go through this pandemic, is trying to protect the vulnerable, the people who are over the age of 60, people with underlying or chronic health conditions. We also want to prevent overrun of the healthcare system. And speaking of that, we want to give you an update on hospital capacity. This is as of this morning. Forest General had 11 acute beds available and 1 ICU bed available. Meredith Wesley had 2 acute beds available and can expand their ICU 2 more beds if needed. Again, that's as of this morning. So typically in the morning times, hospitals discharge. In Forest General's case, they may discharge 80 to 100, maybe over 100 people. And then as the afternoon goes on and people are coming out of surgeries and people are coming into the ER, you'll see those numbers go back up. But as of this morning, that was our hospital capacity. The risk of exposure right now, bottom line for this week, is high in crowds of any size. We're seeing hospitalizations over 100. We're seeing active cases over 1,000. So wherever you go this weekend, be mindful that there might be someone in that crowd who is COVID positive, even if they're asymptomatic. And you should take that knowledge and act accordingly. Let's all make good decisions this week, which means we ought to wear masks. We ought to practice social distancing. And we ought to avoid crowds of any size right now. It's just that dangerous, particularly as we go into the Christmas holidays. Speaking of which, Executive Order 2020-24, that's going to be extending all of our previous executive orders, including this, ceasing in-house dining at 10 p.m. That's going to go until just after Christmas. All mask requirements will be extended as well, particularly where it's such a precarious time in this pandemic. However, if you need to stock up on masks or hand sanitizer for yourself or for church or school, you can go to the Forest County Emergency Management Office tomorrow and Sunday from 8 to 5. They're located on Highway 11, and they will have free masks and free hand sanitizer to give away. If you know someone who is shut in or disabled who just can't get there, they can call 544-5911, and some will be delivered to them. And if you need to get tested this weekend, of course, early detection is key as we try to get people isolated so they won't spread it to other people. There are a number of places you can go. Hattiesburg Cough and Fever Clinic will be open 8 to noon tomorrow and Sunday. The Simrai Minor Health Clinic will be open 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. tomorrow and Sunday. That's, of course, on 27th Avenue near Forest General. If you know a child who needs to get tested, they can go to Merit Health Wesley's Pediatric Clinic. That's a walk-in service from 9 to noon on Saturday only. And, of course, once we get to Monday, the C.E. Roy Community Center will be open back up from 8 to noon, and the Forest County Health Department will be allowing for drive-in testing. You can schedule your appointment at covidschedule.umc.edu. And finally, our act of courage. Today, flags at city facilities flew at half-staff in memory of Court of Appeals judge, Chancery judge, Navy veteran, and longtime Hattiesburg resident Gene Fair. Gene Fair passed away last week at the age of 74, and his funeral was held on Wednesday. Giving his remembrance at the funeral was fellow Chancery Judge Deborah Gambrell, who was his one-time political opponent. The fact that his opponent would be the one to ultimately eulogize his life was very fitting if you knew Gene Fair. I met Gene in 2006 when I was tasked with running his campaign for Chancery Judge. We later became frequent and close friends when he was appointed to the Mississippi Court of Appeals. And for 5 or 6 years, most every weekday morning when I was living in Jackson for the legislative session, we met at Cups Coffee Shop in Fondren to read the news, get started on judicial or legislative work for the day, but mostly just to talk about life. Looking back, those early morning 6 a.m. talks with the judge will forever be some of my fondest memories during that season of my life. Gene Fair was an interesting and incredible man who, in the words of Judge Gambrell, loved his God, his family, and the law. The city of Hattiesburg sends its heartfelt condolences to his wife Fluffy, his daughters Julia and Melissa, and to his 4 grandchildren Tucker, Jack, Fair, and Abigail. Know that your husband, your dad, your grandfather, our friend, made the world a better place because in all of his faith, in his work, in his life, he was compassionate, proven, fair. And as we go into the weekend, remember to wash your hands. Take care of yourself. Wear a mask if you go out in public. Please, if you live in the city of Hattiesburg, boil your water. Do only what is essential. And remember, you're safer at home. Have a great weekend.